All right, boys, are we ready to debate? Austin, you tweeted something, girl. You tweeted your running back rankings. Explain yourself.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast. You jumped up and
That's Austin Nace.
Who is going to be that guy? And for me, Bijan Robinson is still going to be that guy.
Back to the ground with Robinson, who spins and then tries to bounce it. A stiff arm, another one as he rides it, keeps his balance. They're going to say he stepped out, but
I'm Felix Sharp. Jay, I know you didn't think that we would get through this episode without mentioning the name one Zach F. Wilson.
Screener draw. Oh, Wilson is going to uncork for the end zone, and he drops it in beautifully. And it is his roommate, Dax Milne, on the touchdown.
That's Matt Bruning.
G. Scott Jr. Obviously, I waxed poetic about him on the last episode, so I won't do that again here.
And this time it's Fields on the carry. Watch out! Justin Fields, hello Columbus, 51 yards.
Bruning, are you ready to go head-to-head with me?
I am.
Got to get my popcorn out here. Hold on.
Got to continue. I got it. Kyle McCord is going to end up winning the job. He's going to be rated higher.
Well, I'm not nearly as passionate about what I'm about to talk about.
Our apologies to Kirk Street. We ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. And for Matt Bruning and Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck. It's 9:30 Eastern time, the only time zone that's a college dropout. That means it's time for the Devy Debate, brought to you by CampusToCan.com. Matt Bruning is out, but Austin Nace and Chris Moxley are here with me, and I'm Felix Sharp. On a genius version of tonight's show, we review new coaching grades the player Austin fell in love with when preparing the supplemental draft, and we revisit storylines from the 2021 spring college football season. But we start with two Daniels, a pair in the transfer portal. Both Jayden Daniels and J.T. Daniels both have been highly regarded at times in their career. Jayden Daniels obviously starting out in 2019 as a freshman for Arizona State, completing 60% of his passes, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, adding yardage on the ground. J.T. Daniels, the 5-star freshman from Mater Dei, starting as a true freshman for USC, going 2,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, both now in the transfer portal. Chris Moxley, who would you bet on out of these two Daniels?
So when you had this question on the show sheet, I was prompted to go to our metrics tools because y'all know I'm an analytics guy. And so I pulled up side-by-side comparison of QBR and EPA. And JT Daniels qualifies for the QBR statistic, which is 25 plays per game that you're in for, only once, which I think is an indictment of the help that he's had since entering school after his freshman year. I'm not sure what JT Daniels has shown that A, he can stay healthy, B, be a competent quarterback at any point. Jayden Daniels, on the other hand, has actually had a good season in 2020, which was, their shortened COVID season. He performed well. He had a QBR above average, but, I didn't want to say neither because I know that's a cop-out, but I'm going to go with Jayden Daniels, and I don't even like Jayden Daniels because that dude is a string bean.
Yeah, I mean, he has outs. He has the rushing ability. I mean, early on in his career, people were comparing him to Vince Young as a strider. The spring season is about to start here. It's almost March, and both of these players have not picked a team. Austin, I mean, we're looking for the next Kenny Pickett, the next Zach Wilson, the guy to come out of nowhere. Could it be one of these two Daniels boys?
Yeah, I would say Jayden is probably thinner than Felix's mustache here, to stay on point with With what we got going on in the comments here tonight. Set the stage, Felix. Felix has facial hair. They were setting the stage. I don't like either of them at all. JT Daniels is the guy from SpongeBob that is like every night, or every morning I like broke all my bones or whatever, and then every night, like as I cried myself to sleep, he's like made out of tissue paper. That's JT Daniels. He can't stay healthy. He had an oblique injury last year, and this oblique injury kept him out for like 9 weeks. Like that should never happen. So I'm not a big JT Daniels guy. Jayden scares me a little bit, and I was really high on him after his freshman year. You know, we ranked these guys as freshmen, and we're kind of saying, you know, your baseline is here. We think based on what you've shown, you can improve X amount and get a first, second round draft grade or whatever. And I thought that was certainly what the pace that he was on for after his freshman year. Really disappointed the last couple years, and now this new stuff comes out. I guess Colin was saying he listened to the Cover 3 podcast this morning. And they were saying that Jayden Daniels' mom is basically a helicopter parent to the extreme. Like she had a key to the building, that none of his teammates liked him. That like as a quarterback, I don't think you can allow that kind of persona to build around you like that. I'm just out on a guy who's letting his mama come to the building and run the show and do all these things. So I'm just out on both of them. Like I haven't made the adjustment yet. I just got home, but Jayden Daniels is probably going to drop 20 spots in my rankings. Like just based on these stories, like there's no way this dude's ever going to be an NFL quarterback like this.
Jayden Daniels' mom is an Apache helicopter parent. Yeah. Like we're not talking like a regular civilian helicopter. We're talking like a high grade U.S. military helicopter.
She puts Lamar Ball to shame. Yeah.
Yeah. The story they told us Cover 3 today puts him in a very different light and very disliked among his teammates. And that is the red flag.
Well, I think we knew that he was disliked after that video came out, when he said he was entering the portal, of them looting his locker, and you could visibly hear them saying in the background, hey, this guy sucked anyway. Like, not, again, quarterback. This isn't like the outside linebackers. Like, the quarterback should be like, the leader, the most liked guy, like a guy you rally around. Like, that is really, really bad if they're saying that about the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, there's not going to be a Power 5 team this deep into the semester that needs a quarterback. I got to believe that he's going to go G5 somewhere. And he should be a value in like campus to Canton startup drafts, or you should be able to trade him for nothing. But because he's a name, he's not going to be the value that he should be. He's not going to be the value that he should be. And he could actually have some C2C value given his rushing upside. So,
I think he goes to Cal for the record. Like I think Cal is basically etched in stone. As long as he qualifies there, I think that's where he goes.
That's gross.
He's a California kid, and they don't have anybody currently to replace Garbers like effectively. And Garbers is such an effective runner that I think that's a big win for their offense. So I'm here for that as well. I've heard TCU. I don't know if TCU makes a lot of sense.
That one feels like college fans like gassing up a guy to a spot that makes a lot of sense, but probably won't happen. Chase Garbers was a top 15 fantasy quarterback last year.
Yeah.
Like he produced there. So it's not Oregon State, or it's an offense that I think he can do some damage in, whether, he's also top 15 or not. I don't know, but I mean, Cal's a decent spot for him.
I know that Austin is no longer advocating for the 0 QB draft strategy, but look at the state of the quarterback position in the last couple of years. Think about last year. Spencer Rattler, DJ Uiagalelei, they might have been the number 1 and number 2 picks in campus to Canton startups, had Devy value. Think about where Jayden Daniels was. Jayden Daniels might have been a third, fourth round pick last year. People were still valuing that high even after that COVID shortened season. So
that didn't make sense though at the time. Like he's a great example of groupthink getting way ahead of a player's realistic NFL outcome. Like this dude was 190 and then couldn't put on weight. There was rumors he was up to 200 and then he weighed in at 190. Like there were so many red flags with his profile. Like he's not getting to the NFL at 190. He's probably not getting NFL 200. Like he's a tall dude. Like he's very skinny. And I feel like we ignored that for a long time. And I just think that's like one of the things we need to go and take back in Campus Canton drafts as a process adjustment on when we see negative news about a player, we probably need to adjust a little bit more off of our stance. And he's a really good example of that, just ignoring information that's coming out.
So I think it's convenient now to say, he was tiny, he had this issue, he had that issue. Apparently his mom's an issue. But, just pulling up real quick, I just went to campuscant.com, this website that I found on the internet. I don't know. I went to their player metrics tools. They have this really cool thing where you can go in and you can map a player's, college career based on a regression line. On QBR, Jayden Daniels finished just below the line as a freshman and then crushed that line as a sophomore. And again, it was a COVID shortened season. They played an abbreviated schedule. You can make whatever excuses, but I would expect if you're making excuses, the guy to have finished way below the line and you're trying to say this is why he should have been better. Like he has performed, went on the field decently well. I just think it's tough. And this is a cautionary tale, but I think it's tough to say, this freshman is underweight. He will never gain weight. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing to just because he couldn't for whatever reason doesn't mean that a lot of these guys can't. So I think it's convenient now to say, he had all these issues in hindsight, but like, so did Keaton Slovis. Like, everyone loved Keaton Slovis after his freshman year. Like, there's the road to NFL stardom is littered with guys that we were very hopeful for at one point or another, and then one or two things kind of derailed them.
Yeah,
he's been a very good college quarterback. 22-3 touchdown interception ratio between his first 2 years at Arizona State. I mean, he was a true freshman performing in a Power 5 in a Power 5 conference. That's nothing to sneeze at. And he still has 1 year or 2 years
if he wants 2 years
based on
based
on the COVID season. So I mean, he can still be a player that bounces back, which is, again, if you wanted to get him, now would be the time, but I don't know that his value is going to be there.
It won't be. He'll still go too high. He's been going too high in drafts as is. So I mean, it's just we're not adjusting enough for all the negative news that we've seen.
How quickly will you kick off these guys, Chris or Felix? I know, Felix, you are a hanger.
Players that I like,
if you can,
the players that I like,
there's nothing wrong with that. Like, Chris, in your opinion, how quickly should you be kicking off some of these guys?
So a guy like Jayden Daniels, I was in on after his freshman season, and then at the end of the second season, and the news from the spring and the summer was very negative about weight gain, right? Like, they said he could get to 200, didn't get to 200, weighed in, definitely undersized. And that was always the concern with him. And so, like, I was at as soon as he started coming in under 200, I was off. And like, that's the point where I'm willing to write off a guy. Like, I am not a person who hangs on to players. I am very quick to move on. And he was a guy, as soon as that news about his weight and not being able to gain weight, which was the big question, came out, I was like, all right, see ya. Like, I was the lowest on him in our rankings for a good chunk of time last spring, as soon as that news came out, because like, when you're not able to do it after 2 years, you're probably not going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just not to be honest with you, his weight is not something that was in my calculus as far as what I thought he could be. I mean, we've seen all sides we've seen all sizes of quarterbacks now in the last couple of years. And at wide receiver, we've seen, lighter guys go. I mean, Xavier Worthy is 160 pounds. I don't think that's going to prevent him from going in the first round. Just not a factor for me as far as Jayden Daniels. I wanted to see him be more explosive. And maybe we'll get to see him do that at another school. Austin, one of the schools that you mentioned him potentially going to was TCU, where Sonny Dykes is now head coach. Sonny Dykes coming over from SMU. Stuart Mandel of The Athletic graded the head coaching hires, including Sonny Dykes. Gave A's to, and I want to get Austin, maybe I'll start with you, see if your thoughts on these. Gave A's to Lincoln Riley at USC, Mario Cristobal at Miami. As far as hires, Billy Napier at Florida, and Brian Kelly at LSU. I don't think I have a problem with Cristobal at Miami. I mean, it's a match. That's where he's from, and he's been a good recruiter. I don't like the fact that he's a defensive head coach. You have to love Riley wherever he goes. But what do you feel? How do you feel about Napier and Kelly?
So Napier, I've been openly, I don't want to say negative, but I think he's a wait and see kind of guy. But I will say, I think an A is too much at this point in time. I think there's just very much a wait and see there. And I'm like, so first off, I don't think it's possible to really figure out coaching hires at the time that they happen, whether they're good or not. Like the track record of the media trying to guess what's a good hire and what's not at the time is checkered at best. So I'm giving Napier, okay, we'll see what happens there. I just don't think he's a very good coach. I don't think.
Well, Napier has familiarity with the region. He was at UL, and you would think that would play to his advantage. I mean, my question is fit with Kelly, and there's no system or method associated with Brian Kelly. It's just that he's going to be a CEO, and I wonder if that's going to work in a Southern school the way it has worked at all. I mean, he's only coached in the Midwest. Is Brian Kelly just being the leader guy? Is that going to work at LSU where culture is important?
If your criteria for, wanting, if you're an LSU fan and you're wondering, what can we get in a head coach? If your criteria was, let's go get the biggest name we can possibly get, then I think Brian Kelly is an A hire. I don't think you were going to go out and get reasonably anybody else that's a bigger name. Riley went to, where he was going. Like all these names came off the board. Brian Kelly wasn't even really thought of as a candidate. So I think, from that perspective, if you're saying, just give me the biggest name, then I think that's a good hire and you should be excited about it. Where I think if your goal is to win a national championship and to be consistently a national championship contender, that's where I think Brian Kelly is not going to get you there. I think he's an okay recruiter. I think he's an okay coach. I think he's an okay manager. The fact that he couldn't recruit any coaches that he used to coach with there to help him out, I think speaks volumes. So I'm shocked that he gave this an A, because it would not shock me if Brian Kelly doesn't last more than 2 years there. Like I think this has the potential to be a absolute disaster. And LSU is just like a smoldering heap after he's gone.
I can't wait to see what their spring season looks like. Chris Moxley, some of the coaches, the hirings that Mandel gave B's to, Marcus Freeman, one of those coaches that Brian Kelly couldn't recruit with him to LSU, Texas or Duke head coach from Texas A&M, Mike Elko, Baylor assistant head coach Joey McGuire, who's at Texas Tech, Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning, now the head coach at Oregon. Sonny Dykes, who was at at SMU, now at TCU, that we already mentioned. And one that Austin has really highlighted this offseason is Kalen DeBoer, going from Fresno State to Washington. Is there one that you like? I mean, I think the most obvious answer is it's got to be Sonny Dykes at TCU. After that, it's got to be Joey McGuire at Texas Tech, not because of Joey McGuire, but because of the offensive coordinator he brought in there.
It's funny that you say those two, because the first name that I was attracted to was neither of those. It was actually Mike Elko going to Duke. And that's like a weird dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Like being excited about a Duke head coach, but he came in late in the process and retained a top 55 class at Duke. And then he's a really accomplished head coach. I actually thought he was going to get a much better job than the one they got at Duke, but he's like a really academic guy, and he really values like academics in the sport of football. So taking a job like Duke isn't necessarily surprising for Elko, but that's a huge win for the Blue Devils program. Like, I would give that hire an A for Duke. Like, I would give that hire. I think that's the best single hire when adjusted for quality of school across the spectrum this year. Because I think Mike Elko is a home run hire to replace Cutcliffe, who I was a fan of Cutcliffe. His time kind of came to an end at Duke. Like, it is what it is. I like Mike Elko, and I actually really like Mike Elko and the decisions that he's made while at Duke so far. Like, he's brought in the offense coordinator, Kevin Johns, who was at Marshall, and he ran a really great offense. Like, I'm not worried about Mike Elko being a defense coordinator who can't bring in like a good coach. Like, I really like Kevin Johns. Like, he was a very solid offensive coach. So that's my favorite hire when we're adjusting for like quality of school. I do think that it's impossible not to like the Joey McGuire hire, because he did bring in Zach Kittley, and Zach Kittley is the one of the sharpest offensive minds.
Hold on, before you
Yes.
switch over here to Texas Tech, Moxley,
Yes.
is there a single name at Duke that we should be considering for? I mean, there's no Devy players there, but for campus to Canton, is there that's what matters.
Yeah.
Is there a single player that we should care about at Duke?
I think there's two. One is Jordan Waters. He's the running back that I think is going to assume the Mateo Durant role. He was RB2 last season. He was actually efficient in a couple spots where he did come in and replace Durant. And the other one is Jalen Calhoun, who's the wide receiver 1 there. They had Jake Bobo move on to UCLA. And so I think Jalen Calhoun is kind of interesting. Eli Pankel is the wide receiver 2. I don't think he has any value, but I like Jalen Calhoun, and I like Jordan Waters. I think they're both like priority waiver guys, potentially, who can deliver CFF production for you this season.
All right, write them down.
I worry about volume for Calhoun a lot, actually.
Riley Leonard is not a pass heavy quarterback, but I mean, what I like about Kevin Johns was that he at Baylor, like, he had a 25% or a 50% neutral game pass script, or a neutral game script pass rate, which was 25th in the country. Like, he's willing to throw the ball. And so I'm going to accept that. Like, Kevin Johns may want to pass it more. And I don't know that Riley Leonard's going to be the guy. It could be Jordan Moore, who came in last season and played a little bit. So I kind of am a little bit interested in Jalen Calhoun, and I'm not drafting him in C2C, but he's definitely a guy that I'm keeping an eye on waivers.
I don't want to stay here too long, but there was one G5 coach that I thought that we should highlight, and that's Jay Norvell going from Nevada to Colorado State. Colorado State has low-key had some very good offensive talent the past couple of years. Michael Gallup, Warren Jackson, Dante Wright is there now, Trey McBride. I mean, this is a team that has produced players that are either NFL caliber or, borderline NFL caliber. Clay Millen, who, Austin, you have been high on, is transferring to Colorado State. Is it and this is he ran a spread wide open system with my boy Carson Strong. There's always like a team that we need to pay attention and get value there. Clay Millen's there, Torrey Horton's there. Could it be Colorado State, Austin, the team that we should be paying attention to get some value in the 30th round of a campus to Canton startup in the form of Clay Millen, Torrey Horton? Dante Wright's going to go earlier than that. But are these players that you're gravitating towards as a result of Norvell going to Colorado State?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to take them earlier than the 30th round if you're in a savvy league at all. I just think it's one of those just like obvious kind of deep shots where it's like, by now everybody knows that Norvell was at Nevada and he worked with Carson Strong and he kind of got him from point A to point B. And you look at Clay Millen, who is, in my opinion, equally as talented from like a physical standpoint. I'm not going to harp on, can he develop into the same kind of quarterback that Carson Strong was in college? I think that's a big ask, but he's the kind of guy where, Norvell, his offense is basically either quick hitter or 40 yards downfield. And I think that's exactly the kind of quarterback that Clay Millen is. So I think, this is one of those early in the offseason, they're sleepers. By May, everyone's aware of this and they're no longer really going to be sleepers. So if you're drafting now, enjoy whatever rate you're going to get them at, because that will not be the case in a few months.
Big wide receiver guy in the comments mentioning Dante Wright. I mean, I think everybody in the community was a big fan of Dante Wright after his first 2 seasons. I mean, if you like somebody like Sky Moore, you would like Dante Wright. This is why a landing spot matters, because Steve Adazio was like just a terrible higher for a player like Wright who can stretch the field and it can do a lot of versatile things. So I'm glad that we have Jay Norvell there now to utilize him, but he could absolutely be a Sky Moore type player and be drafted on day 2 come 2023. I mean, I think that's true. Chris Moxon.
Yeah. So Wright and Torrey Horton are going within like 30 spots of our ADP currently. I think one has a lot higher NFL upside, and I think that's Wright. I think one has a better chance maybe to be a CFF producer, and I think that's Horton. But a guy not going anywhere in our ADP is Melquan Stovall, who also transferred. And I think that he's going to be the wide receiver.
Wow.
Like, I think he's going to be in 3 wide receiver sets. And if you really want to take a shot late in this offense and assume that they bring the same kind of efficiency and productivity from Nevada that they brought, that's going to be at Colorado State, then Melquan Stovall, I think, is a guy to take a shot on. I mean, he had 650 yards in last season at Nevada. I think he could be productive. I'm not totally sold on Dante Wright as a fantasy producer this season. I think that there's going to be competition from Horton more than I think people lead it to. Like they think.
I think the opposite. Torrey Horton has a very goofy playing style, like very awkward, very unorthodox. It would not shock me at all if Wright takes that job from him.
Well, I think it's going to be Right as well. I just think Horton's going to eat into it maybe more.
It's interesting because I like the problem with Wright is I'm not sure if he's a pure downfield guy. Like that offense kind of calls for. Like I think he can win deep. At one point, Dante Wright was like a top 15 Devy wide receiver for me. Like after his true freshman year where he smashed, I was like, okay, the traits are there. Like there are some flashes there, and obviously that offense as a whole has just been kind of disappointing. I mean, it's been the Trey McBride show, and that's about it. Because I think that's all they could support. He has the tools, but I'm not sure if he can consistently, like Romeo Doubs did, or some of these guys who were kind of Carson Strong's best friend over the past couple years. Can he fill that same role, or is he a little almost too versatile? Like, is he Curtis Samuel? Does Curtis Samuel excel in this type of offense? I'm not sure he really does. Dante Wright kind of feels like he's in that mold. So it is a little concerning, but Horton's just like, I liked Horton after freshman year. I'm not sold on Horton after this year. Just this tall, lanky, kind of flailing goober out there.
2019, 6'6" Warren Jackson, 5'9" Dante Wright, one of the best wide receiver combos in the country. All right, let's move on here. I am handling housekeeping, at least the start of it today. Ladies and gentlemen, the freshman and supplemental draft guide is on its way. We are putting the finishing touches on it for release. And if you are a yearly subscriber to campus2can.com, that's $29.99 for the year or $2.99 a month, then you get it for free. You need to be subscribing to the website. Campus to Canton as a format, not just the website, is growing. Trust me, we are, I guess we're the the lobbyists, I guess, for the format, and people are reaching out to us. It is absolutely growing. If you aren't playing in a Campus to Canton league this year, you will be very, very soon. Why not start this year? $29.99 for the year, and you get the supplemental draft guide for free, which was essentially written by Austin. I mean, the entire thing essentially written by Austin. Austin, was there a player that you fell in love with during this labor of love?
20-second piece here before I say that. Guys, even if you are not into the Campus to Canton format, you hear us talk about on the show, you think that's daunting, I don't want to do it. That's okay. Guys, this offseason already, it is February 23rd, 2022. We are 46 or something days into the offseason. We have already built an entire CFF team. So if you play college fantasy, we have a ton of stuff coming at you for that. If you just like Devy, it's not quite Campus to Canton. You just want a couple players. You don't have to worry about watching all the college games every week. Guess what, guys? We just got a whole Devy team too that's pumping out Devy content. So don't think that I don't play Campus to Canton. I don't need to go check any of this stuff out, because we are probably, if you're a college football fan at all in any sort of context, we probably have something that you are looking for. On to the player that I fell in love with, a player that I think every time I watch him, I want to bump him up further in my rankings. I'm to the point now where I don't know that I can anymore. It's Antonio Williams. So wide receiver who's going to Clemson. I'm sorry, Chris. Were you going to talk about Antonio Williams?
No, I was going to talk about. I thought you were going to talk about the J.T gang.
I do like Jaxson Dart. I've talked to him on a bunch of shows. Antonio Williams, freshman wide receiver, going to Clemson. If you listen to kind of the Devy community at large, I think there's been a big focus on Adam Randall, the other big name freshman wide receiver that's going to Clemson. He's a bigger kid. He kind of fits that what you think of as the typical Clemson archetype there. He's 6'3", 215, big, fluid kid. Just, think of the wide receivers that have been really good at Clemson in recent times. The T. Higginses, the Justin Rosses, like all these kids, they're kind of built like this guy. Antonio Williams is very much different than the mold that's been there. He's 6 foot 180. He is one of the fastest kids in the class. The composite 24/7 composite does have him higher than Adam Randall, and I do as well. He's just a crazy good athlete in his own right. One of the fastest kids in the class. He's very refined for a high school kid, though. Like, he can run routes. He's got really nice hands. He went to the All-American Bowl, and by all accounts, just was roasting corners all week at practice. And the thing that I like about him the most is that he gives something, like I said, at Clemson that is different than what they have there. Like, I don't know that Adam Randall plays it all this year because they have Bo Collins, they have Dakari Collins, they have Joe Ngata, they have all these guys that are basically all the same thing. And Antonio Williams is kind of a fresh air.
They have some Jags. Yeah,
you do have some Jags. Well, Bo Collins, I think I like Bo Collins. So like I'm falling more and more in love with this kid. He was like my wide receiver 11 or 12 to start off. I think he's like up to wide receiver 8 now. I don't know how many more spots I can bump him, but I'm telling you, in drafts this year, I am going to walk out with just a shit ton of Antonio Williams. And I think by year 2, that's going to just look, not to pat myself on the back, I think it's going to look genius by that time.
Where do you?
And you're taking a player, Austin, that you're going to be able to get at value. Some players that I like that you're not going to be able to get the same value is one is Ty Simpson, the quarterback going to Alabama. If you like, the kind of Johnny Manziel, Zach Wilson scrambler, make a play happen, that's what Ty Simpson is. And I love Jalen Milroe, who's there, but Ty Simpson is just really, really fun. He reminds me a little bit of what I saw from Hudson Card 2 years ago, I guess now. So Ty Simpson is one that I love. I didn't write his profile, but the other one is Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton, the Gatorade National Player of the Year for, I think, the state of North Carolina. Yes, the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, he's not the National Player of the Year.
I didn't say the National Player League. The Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of North Carolina. He ran for over like 2,500. Yes. Yeah, he ran for over like 2,500 yards or so. He is a Javonte Williams-esque type runner, 225 pounds, very slow. That was one thing that we do not have a good mile per hour time on him. But I just like the way he's built. I like the way he runs. I like runners who run the ball that way. Excuse me. So he is one, but that backfield at North Carolina is kind of loaded with guys that look like that. But still a guy that I'm paying attention to. And I think I mentioned Jordan James on other shows. I really like Jordan James, who spurned Georgia to go to Oregon. Jordan James is a very similar style of runner, to similar-ish to Omarion Hampton. But then lastly, the wide receiver, Jordan Hudson, who's going to TCU, just one of the most productive wide receivers in high school. And I could have this wrong, but RA Analytics on Twitter, which does some data-based physical analysis of players, I think that they have Jordan Hudson as the number 1 receiver in the class based on athleticism and their high school production.
Do they? They have DJ Allen's really, really high too.
Okay, maybe that's. Well, check me if I know I have that bookmark. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, those are a couple of the guys that I like. Austin, what about a player that you now despise?
Well, Chris, did you want to say? Add something there for real quick? Yeah, Matt confirmed it's DJ Allen. They have number 1, another TCU wide receiver.
There you go. No, I was going to add that I am not an Omarion Hampton fan. I think it's the George Pettaway show there. But I actually want to give a shout out to. So I was not part of the guy writing process. I come much later into the rookie process than a lot of other folks can scan. But as I started to dive in, Ashton G&T. Did I pronounce his last name right, Austin?
You did now. I've said it 12 different ways over the past month and a half. Yeah.
Gianti.
Yeah, that is my dude,
twist my
I think,
mustache.
for this cycle. He's a Boise State commit, and he is like half wide receiver, half running back, over 100 receptions the last 2 years in high school. This dude is a monster receiver, has adequate size for the running back position. He's a guy that I think is going to be possibly the next G5 great running back. Like, he has so many great skills. I am a huge fan of G&T. And I know Austin wrote up his profile that you can check out in the guide. This dude can play. This dude is awesome. That is my favorite freshman. And I read Austin's write-up, and he's awesome.
Ashton Gianti played 3 years of high school football, I believe, in Texas at a very high level there and caught 96 passes as a running back, guys. As a running back, that's more than a decent portion of these wide receivers will catch in high school. And this dude, a freaking running back, caught 96 passes. That's all you need to know about this kid.
He did not play football until his sophomore year of high school. Yeah. Like, did not play the sport of football at all. I think he might be from Italy, or like he's like a weird upbringing where he just like didn't play football at all.
Felix is muted. He doesn't know.
Yeah, Felix
Don't tell him.
Talking.
Oh, he just gave us a whole 20-second dive.
I said, and he's going to Boise State. Boise State always has these running backs from other countries.
He's a late riser.
Jay Ajay from London, and the other one who played in the game against Oklahoma, I think was also international. All right, Austin, what about somebody you hate or despise now that you've written them up?
So this is not a player. I don't believe I wrote him up. I would have to double check because, like Felix said, I wrote all the guide. No, I didn't write all the guide. Everybody did an amazing job on this guide. I will refuse to take any more than 1/8 credit or whatever. Caden Saunders is a guy that I have really fallen out of love with here during the process. A kid that's going to Penn State. I was pretty high on him. I think he was like my wide receiver 5 after I watched his junior stuff. And then I always do a rewatch. Like I'll try to watch all these kids after their junior year, and then I'll try to watch all of them after their senior year. Plus, the net will catch the guys that I didn't get initially, because I want to see the growth and I want to kind of watch it twice. So like I have an opinion, and then I get to watch them again and see if it changes or not. So I think that's kind of how the process works for me. Caden Saunders is a small wide receiver. He's listed at 5'10", 170. I don't know that he's actually that big. He's from Ohio. He's going to Penn State here. He's kind of the jewel of their class. I have a really hard time projecting a kid that literally could only play the slot in high school to play the perimeter in college. Like, I think if you're limited to slot in high school, that does not bode well for your projection to the next level. He's tiny. And the thing that I think ties into that point is he is not physical at all. He is one of the least physical wide receivers that I watched at all this year. And you don't need to be a guy that's bodying guys, that's out muscling, that's bullying. But he looks like he's afraid to touch defenders. He just is not game for that. So I don't think he can play on the boundary at all. I think he's limited to the slot. That means he probably doesn't play at all year one because Parker Washington is there for Penn State. Maybe he's a kick returner guy there for them. Like, I just don't see any sort of high-end future there for him. And he's being drafted, I think, in our ADP as a top 36 guy in freshman drafts. That's really expensive for a guy that just, quite honestly, I struggle to see a real role for him in college. He was, like I said, he was my wide receiver 5. I think he's like down to like my wide receiver 15 or 16 now. I just have completely fallen out of love with him. I can guarantee you I will draft 0 Caden Saunders this offseason. 0.
I mean, for what it's worth, Derek Williams, KJ Hamler, Keandre Lambert-Smith, I mean, they've had success with similarly sized players.
Not afraid of contact, though. And that's the thing. He just doesn't like contact, really, at all.
Do you guys remember Derek Williams? You know who drafted Derek Williams? The frickin' Lions. Tweet at me at Sharp Review if you remember Derek Williams at Penn State wearing number 2 back in like 2000.
Wide receiver?
Wide receiver. 2003.
Was he did he play quarterback there and then transition?
No, that's Michael Robinson. That's Michael Robinson who played quarterback, wide receiver, and running back. Yeah. All right. I think the guy that there are a couple. There's one guy that made it into the guide. That's Tevin White. I don't think Tevin White is much of an athlete at all. He's a running back going to Arizona State. Good hands, but I just don't think that has any juice. The other one is AJ Johnson, who I don't think AJ Johnson actually made it into the guide. Did he, Austin? Because he hasn't declared.
So we didn't put him in the guide for multiple reasons, but including he hasn't picked a school. He got kicked out of his last high school. There's really awful rumors about him as a person. No, we could not in good conscience recommend anybody draft this kid in any sort of format ever.
Well, AJ Johnson is a player who played with Arch Manning at I forgot the name of Arch Manning's school there in Louisiana.
Newman or
right. I was going to sort of Bishop Gorman, but that's the school in Las Vegas. Anyway, but AJ Johnson was Arch Manning's number 1 wide receiver for a year, I believe in their sophomore years, and had a really good season, but was somewhat of a lumberer. And then, as Austin said, there are rumors circulating about him, and he hasn't declared. It's past National Signing Day, so the last I saw, he was warm on FIU, I believe, and I think he's a 4-star prospect. So, but we're never going to hear from him.
Actually,
yeah, we're never going to hear from him again. So that's a guy that I dislike. All right, I don't know how we. The other housekeeping stuff. That was all housekeeping. YouTube page. Go subscribe, rate and reviews for this website, which occasionally you will find on the Campus to Camp feed, and occasionally you'll just find it here. But give a rate and review there at Campus to Camp or here on Devy Date. 5-star rate and review, and then the website. Get in the Discord. We do this all year long because we have to get ready for our supplemental drafts. We have to get ready, to do our trades and whatnot. Campus to Canton as a format is all year round. All right, let's move on to – we picked it. Spring season is about to start, Austin and Chris. And I was just thinking about last year, where we were at this time last year, at least with – at the completion of the spring with spring games complete, and just think about where we were. I want to throw some of these items that I remember from last year, and you guys can just riff on them. Let's start at Oklahoma. Eric Gray transfers from Tennessee to Oklahoma. He's lining up all over the place in the spring. In the spring game, catches the first pass of the game from Spencer Rattler, lined up in the slot, was kind of utilized all over the place out there at OU. And then nothing. Really underutilized this year through the season at Oklahoma. I mean, where were you at, Austin, on Eric Gray at the conclusion of the spring game last year?
Is there a worse feeling in all? Like, I think, if you play any sort of Devy or any of this stuff, you kind of know what I'm about to refer to here, where you hedge on a guy a little bit because the buzz starts building, and you're like I didn't really like Eric Gray as a player, but I said, well, at least I think he's probably going to do really well in that offense. And I took him from a guy that was like RB 20-ish for me, and I bumped him up to a spot like RB 10, RB 9. I don't know exactly where I had him. Might have even been a little bit higher than that. I honestly don't remember. And then you were right the first time, and you're like, shit, I got caught up in the hype. Eric Gray is definitely a guy where I said, I don't know if there's actually an NFL future here, but I think he's just going to crush it at Oklahoma, and he did not do that. So I got suckered into that one for sure. That's probably one of the few storylines this offseason that I kind of started buying into, and I definitely regret doing it because he did not fit what that offense wanted at all for whatever reason. Felix is muted.
Yeah, I mean, the other player in that Oklahoma spring game was Mario Williams, and they also utilized him all over the place. They threw it to him deep several times. He had to catch. They also utilized him on a reverse. I mean, you could just tell that he was going to be a part of that offense. Now he was a part of that offense for Lincoln Riley, but used almost like a Rondale Moore type around the line of scrimmage type guy, the outlet on some of these RPOs, not utilized deep like I think that he should. I mean, he was noted to be one of the fastest players, if not the fastest player in camp, was not utilized as a deep threat the same way he was in the spring game. And so I was like, this is one of my favorite players. He's always been very high in my rankings. He started off as, a top 9-ish wide receiver or something like that for me.
Do you think – so I actually want to touch on that real quick. Do you think that part of that is the role that Caleb Williams played? Because he is a very different quarterback than Spencer Rattler. And it was like, I don't think Lincoln Riley did a good job of scheming him up, but he definitely schemed him up differently. And I wonder if Mario Williams working closer to the line of scrimmage was a part of that. And I don't have an answer. I'm literally just asking because I don't know.
To be honest with you, I don't think that Caleb Williams is a different quarterback than Spencer Rattler. After watching all of the snaps this year, it's just that Caleb Williams is more mobile and can use his legs, but Caleb Williams is just as aggressive, if not more so, than Spencer Rattler with throwing the ball deep. That being said, no, you're right, but they used Mike Woods and Marvin Mims deep, and they used Mario Williams around the line of scrimmage. When I see that, having been in the locker room, I think that's a result of coaching, because sometimes whether you go deep or break it off is based on the coverage. Like if you're facing cover 2 or cover 3, your route could change. And they may have had Mario Williams just do the things that required the least amount of thinking. I don't know that to be the case. I'm speculating on that, but I'm like, why didn't this guy have a more diverse route tree? That's one thing that I could think of.
It's an interesting question because I think, Eric Gray started off the year. He got some touches. First 4 games of the season, he had 9 carries, 15 carries, 12 carries. They weren't using him in the receiving game enough, but he was at least getting touches. Like he was involved in the game plan in some sort of way. Kansas State was the 5th game of the season. He had 4 carries, so he did drop off. Caleb Williams came in that next game against Texas when they made the massive comeback, and Caleb Williams kind of pushed Spencer Rattler off the field. Starting at Texas, Eric Gray's touches: 6 carries, 1 carry, 2 carry, 1 carries, 4 carries, 1 carry. So at first I thought I think that's not accurate. And then I went to look at the game log and I'm like, well, maybe there is something to, they just didn't, like maybe he's not a great pass blocker. They didn't want to give, somebody that kind of sucks at that with a freshman quarterback. I don't know what the reasoning is, but I think there might be something to that hypothesis either way.
Well, let's move on here to a school in your neck of the woods, Chris Moxley, those Clemson Tigers. We saw DJU's season last year, but did we start making excuses for him in the spring where, we talked about this chatting just a little bit earlier today. I don't remember DJU's performance in the spring game, but you do.
Yeah, people were really underwhelmed with what he was doing, and they just wrote it off to it being a spring game and not thinking anything of it. But when you go back and kind of look, like Lincoln Riley was not talking about DJU not Lincoln Riley. Dabo Sweeney was not talking about DJU. He was not complimentary. Like there were breadcrumbs there that you could infer that there might be problems heading into the season. And it culminated kind of in the spring game when he wasn't sharp. He was fine, was the bottom line. And when you're fine, it begs a question of like, how good are you really, considering the expectations that we had for DJU? And so I think that looking back now with full view of hindsight, like the news out of spring was pretty damning based on what we saw. And it's an example of maybe just like pay attention to the nuggets that you don't hear. You don't hear Dabo Sweeney talking about it the same way you heard Nick Saban talking about Bryce Young. Like there's a big difference going back and doing the coach speak. And so it's just maybe what you don't hear that's important about like a player that's so integral to the offense.
there's like a fine balance there because you don't want to overreact to the news, but man, there were some things that we could have saw coming from the spring last year. I mean, DJU, for a lot of us, he was the number one quarterback. I mean, he just shouldn't have been after the spring. The thing I remember about that Clemson spring game is a Joe going off in like the second half and me just not being impressed with this 6'4" lumbering wide receiver. Let's move on here to Texas. Austin Ace. Texas, there were a couple of things that were playing out there. One, the quarterback competition between Hudson Card and Casey Thompson. And then two, that Texas offensive line was terrible. Now, I think I've cited this before. I believe that offensive line ranked like 75th or so, like somewhere around where Troy ranked as in pass blocking according to PFF. I know maybe it was Duke. I know that there was like Duke and there was like a T school right around Texas. But two things that came out of the spring last year were the fact that quarterback job was not settled and the fact that the offensive line was very, very shaky.
Did anybody win that discussion?
No.
Like
when yours. Whoa! Yeah. I won the discussion. You mean my argument with Colin?
Like you were like Casey Thompson's going to get that job, and it was like, yeah, okay, I think he did after like 5 games, and he was still not very good. Like they were clearly. Sark wants to push the ball, like not uber aggressively, but he wants to push the ball, and he just clearly, like, neither quarterback that was there could do that at all in any sort of capacity. So, which is what happened. Like, I don't know why this would happen. Like, defenses were okay with giving them things in the first half, and then they just adjusted in the second half all season, which is why Texas would jump out to like a 10-point lead and then get outscored by 3 touchdowns in the second half. I don't know exactly what was going on in the game plan room. The teams didn't know that ahead of time, but I think a lot of it was because teams were like, they cannot consistently push the ball downfield. Casey Thompson can't do it. Hudson Card can't do it. Keep everything in front of you and make them beat you deep. They couldn't do it. So, yeah, I don't think anybody actually won that argument. And I am really excited because I think Quinn Ewers can and will push the ball downfield pretty efficiently. Like, I think he's going to, like, Justin Herbert kind of feels like what he's going to be able to do. Like, where Justin Herbert was just, like, disgustingly efficient downfield. That's what Quinn Ewers feels like he's going to do for the next 2 years at Texas to me. Like, just be disgustingly efficient downfield.
I need to go watch more Quinn Ewers because you are really excited about him. And even if, hypothetically, if Quinn Ewers does not win the job and it somehow goes to Malik Murphy has the same kind of arm talent where he can push the ball downfield. So Steve Sarkisian has 2 players there at OU who can sling it, who can absolutely.
Malik Murphy can throw the football through a 10-inch wall of concrete. Like, just he's got a fucking bazooka, and that's putting it lightly. Yes, you're welcome.
Chris Moxley, Alabama. It was interesting watching Alabama spring game. We actually me, you, and Matt actually did a watch party for the spring game. Roydell Williams, Jace McClellan, heavily involved in the offense. Ajay Hall, 2 big downfield contested catches in that game. No JoJo Earl. Bryce Young had a really crucial turnover in that spring game. Jaleel Billingsley lined up all over the place, really off the ball, moving as a tight end. Where were you at on some of these Alabama players after the spring game last season?
I was excited for Ajay Hall. I've always been like a Billingsley skeptic because that dude is tiny. I'm apparently a weightist. I hate all these players who are incredibly tiny. But he's too small to be a tight end at the NFL level, and he obviously doesn't work hard enough to stay at Alabama. So there's questions about the work ethic. So I didn't like him coming in anyway. But I really think Jace McClellan could have carved out like a Josh Jacobs-esque role to like a Brian Robinson, Damian Harris role. Like, I really thought that was the path that Jace McClellan was going to go down if he had stayed healthy and not torn his ACL. So I think Jace McClellan is a quality running back. And so I was excited the way that he was used in the spring game. And that was a huge positive for me. And I think Roydell Williams became that Brian Robinson replacement if Robinson was going to go down, I bet we would have seen like a big season of Roydell Williams. And then Ajay Hall, like I liked what I saw, and I really did, but I'm not saying anything that hasn't been reported, but the character concerns permeated from his high school career all the way through till today. Like today he tweeted, "I hate Ajay Hall." Like, man, just like relax a little bit. So I'm surprised he hasn't transferred out, to be honest. I just don't think that he's a guy who I want to be investing in long term, despite a really impressive spring game. And I was happy to see that he did it. But with Alabama, I think I'm going to take a step back and say they just want to see guys that they're questioning get on the field more. And I think
Of all of the games that we have on this list, I think we learned the least from the Alabama spring game. Jason McClellan and Roydell Williams did not play a big role in their offense this season. Was Ja'Cory Brooks even on the field?
All of the freshmen except for Ajay Hall were injured, and JoJo Earl wasn't there. Like
JoJo Earl wasn't there; he was still playing.
Were hurt.
Yeah, and then Jaleel Billingsley, complete smokescreen the way he was used. So, no Jamison Williams. Jamison Williams still at Ohio State at the time of the spring game last year, and you see Nick Saban kind of correct that mistake earlier this year, going out and getting Jermaine Burton. So,
I actually I touched on it a little bit like a couple minutes ago, but I wonder if Alabama is one of those teams that have the luxury of basically like testing out players they have questions about in their spring game. And I think a team like Ohio State might be the same way, where we have questions about Jaleel Billings, so we have questions about Ajay Hall. Let's get them on the field and get them involved and see what they can do in like a mock game situation, because they have the luxury to do that. And that is complete speculation on my end, but it sure would make sense to see it from like a higher level school if they really wanted to do that. Because I think what Ajay Hall didn't do for the majority of the season is pretty telling.
So speaking of having questions about guys, I want to ask you guys something, because we were talking about this in the Discord this week at C2C, and it's something that's kind of perplexed me about Saban as a whole and kind of his treatment of the running back position over the past 2 years, probably. Jace McClellan is 5'11", 212. He has bell cow size. He was the best athlete spark-wise in his entire class at the running back position. They've been insistent on using him in this receiving role that I don't think is his best role. Like, I think his best role is a 3-down guy. I know you don't necessarily get that guy at Bama, Najee kind of being the exception, but are we missing something with Jace McClellan, or are they just kind of not using him correctly? Like, he's not a 3rd-down guy, is he?
Well, I don't think we know yet, right? Yeah. I mean, 2020 he hasn't played. 2020 his freshman season. 2021 barely plays before he's injured. Not going to play this year because he's going to sit behind Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he is a good athlete.
So that's kind of the point, though. He's going to sit behind Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's a better player than Roydell Williams, who's the presumptive, or Trey Sanders, who are the presumptive, thumper back. Can he not play that role? Like, are we just like blind to something here?
That might have been the big takeaway from the Alabama game, because Roydell Williams was running with the twos, so to speak, and Jahmyr Gibbs was running with the threes, or Jason McClellan. Jason McClellan was running with the threes, and I think we just assume that that's just they're doing that to split the work. But when it comes to it, Jason McClellan will be the one getting the share of the touches. But in 2020, wasn't he the second leading rusher after Najee? I mean, I feel like
Brian Robinson had to have been.
Brian Robinson, okay.
But Jason McClellan had multiple huge runs. The one against Kentucky, that was like maybe 90 yards or something. It was a huge run against Missouri. I don't remember
something stupid. Yeah, because he had like 10 touches.
But I mean, I don't think we haven't seen enough to draw like anything definitive, because he only has his freshman season on tape, and I think only had like 10 or 15 carries, and he has adequate size, right? He's 212 on the Alabama website right now. I just don't know if they need him in that role. Like, I just wonder if they think that he'd be more valuable in a receiving role, like a Josh Jacobs. I really think that's a really legit parallel that they want to use him in a Jacobs role versus because they know he wouldn't be as effective in maybe not as effective, but they thought that he would be more valuable with limited touches in like a receiving role. And so I just wonder if that's how they plan to use him this year before he went down with injury. Because that would make sense. Like he was definitely their most dynamic running back.
So he had 50 touches in 4 games. Like it wasn't like he was doing nothing.
Huh. Yeah, all those were garbage time, though, to be fair.
Chris Moxley, somebody giving you a 4th round supplemental draft pick. You taking that for Jace McClellan right now?
No way. I will. Like, I don't even like Jason McClellan that much. Like, I'm definitely down on him compared to where I was like a year ago. Obviously, like no surprise, but I still think that he is a good player. I guess I believe in his talent profile more than I do in guys that are going in the 4th round of supplemental drafts. Like those are like 4-ish star guys, and like I'm not that impressed with that profile there. So I'm gonna hold McClellan. I would probably move him for like a 2nd round supplemental, but I'm not sure I'm getting that.
Antonio Williams is going in the 4th round. Just want to throw that out there.
Oh.
Austin, let me throw some of these to you. Jace McClellan or Trevante Citizen?
I haven't mixed the freshman with my rankings yet, so I can't even reference that. I'm going to take McClellan narrowly. They're
Really
close.
So I don't
take
very close.
I would take Citizen. Pretty easy.
I would take Citizen also. So I guess Branson Robinson then, or
I would take
Jace
Branson.
McClellan.
Yeah. It wouldn't be outrageous that McClellan ends up being the better player, but Branson Robinson has so much more value right now that I would take Branson Robinson.
Okay, all right.
I think I'm buying Jace McClellan. Like, I might not be I think if you're doing a startup draft, there is a gap between what he's going at in startups according to our ADP and what I think you could trade for him. Because I think the Jahmyr Gibbs thing, like if you had Jace McClellan, you were in a C2C league, you were probably counting on him being a starting running back for you next year on your campus roster. And I think there's now a disappointment. I think you can get him relatively cheap compared to a startup draft. So I'm probably going to try to make some trades for him this offseason, but I think his ADP still puts him in the 3rd round, and I probably would not quite take him at a 3rd round value. So I think this is just an instance of the ADP not necessarily matching established value in the league.
What round supplemental pick are you trading for him?
I'll be honest. Like, I know we were talking about supplemental picks, and I argued that supplemental picks are worth a lot, but I think after like the 2nd round, I think it's really just kind of, a crapshoot. So if you gave me anything after like the 2-6, like that would be an auto accept, and anything else I'd kind of hopefully want to see what was on the board. Because like I think those early picks are undervalued, but then the ones after that are like very overvalued. So I'm
probably in the exact same boat you are.
That feels right to me.
Picks.
Yeah.
One last note from last year's spring that I want to bring up. Xavier Worthy still at the University of Michigan in April before leaving and ending up at Texas. You got to love college football. Xavier Worthy, at the very least, the top, 7-ish wide receiver for all of us. Now playing with Steve Sarkisian, now playing with Bijan Robinson, now playing with Quinn Ewers is going to be the focus of that offense that could put up 4,000 yards passing this year, maybe?
Quinn Ewers? Wait, who's going to put up 4,000 yards?
Texas.
Quinn Ewers is going to pass for 4,500 yards this year. I'm telling you guys. Quinn Ewers is going to absolutely smash this year.
You don't have to tell me, man.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
All right. That is going to be our show for tonight. Make sure you check out all of the content around the Campus to Canton family, including the Campus to Canton podcast feed, where you can find this podcast, Canton Bound Campus Life Fantasy Roundtable. And there's going to be a new podcast shortly, I believe. A new podcast. Listen, we're just pumping out this stuff. I don't know. Just go subscribe to the Campus to Canton podcast feed and leave a rate and review. We're growing our presence. All right. All right. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We will get him rescheduled soon. For Chris Moxley and Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck. All right. I got to send this to Nate Marquise.
Nate Marquise is our campus life reality, much like Chris was our Devy debate reality early in the days in the CFF channel every Tuesday morning.
He's
He
so
hops in
funny
there and
about
goes,
it. Yeah.
Here's what you guys fucked up these episodes.
It's
You should
generally
bring it
related to
more.
Oklahoma, or the Big 12, to be fair. But
That's funny.
no, Nate's article that he dropped last week.
The depressing one?
Yeah.
For you.
It
Validating
was
for
really
me.
good. And Corey's article that he dropped this week was also very good. We've actually had a lot of really great content on the site recently.
Dude, I don't want to be biased because it is the website that I obviously own a 2/13 share of or something. But our team is crushing it right now. Like everybody here is just freaking crushing it. Like
I mean, I read something
people
from
aren't even
Corey. It
ready.
made me actually not want to publish something that I was I got to go back and rewrite this. rewrite this.
just smart.
His article was really well done.
Yeah.
It was really impressive.
Yeah. That's Snuggie.
Just the way it looked too.
What do we got here?
No, this is just a blanket.
Oh.
It's cold. It's cold. Is it cold in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so I woke up at like 6:30 this morning and it was like 55 and I was like, "Oh fuck yeah."
In the house?
No, outside. It
Oh,
was like
outside.
55. And then literally like 40 minutes later when I went to leave,
It
it
got
already
colder.
dropped like 6 degrees and
Yeah.
now it's like 30 degrees out.
Yeah, it's gotten
Oh.
Hey.
What's up,
Well,
fellas?
Nate.
well, Nate,
Not much. What's going on?
not too much. You got a brewski? What do we got tonight?
No, taking it easy tonight. It's a Wednesday. I figure I fire up my weekend on a Thursday. So if you ask me again in 24 hours, the answer would be a lot different.
All right, I will hit you up.
The voice that you're hearing is CFF Nate Marquise, who, I mean, I think we've referenced his work I know I did even before he came on with us. And now he is on our CFF team. So welcome, Nate. Welcome.
Appreciate it, fellas. Yeah, it's been. I mean, I've only been around for a few weeks now, but I've already cranked out a couple articles, so I feel like I'm trying to dive into the deep end. So it's been fun.
Oh yeah, it's been fun reading your stuff. I mean, it's not been fun reading your stuff to be honest, but it's been informative.
I literally got through the first 2 quarterbacks on my list that I wrote up, and I just thought to myself, boy,
Yeah.
this is not going to be something that Felix is going to be super thrilled to
Go.
dive into.
Go find a reason for us to hate CJ Stroud, and then I'll like that. CJ Stroud.
From a CFF
when
perspective,
yours-
there will be no hate coming this way for CJ Stroud.
I feel like the nomenclature for that's around college fantasy football still needs to be explained, because Austin would say CFF to me all the time, and I was like, I don't. What are you talking about? And so for the uninitiated, CFF is essentially redraft college fantasy football, where the only thing that matters is production and these players scoring points. So, there's no, Bailey Zappi going to be highly valued in CFF over a player like Drew Aller, where Drew Aller is a freshman going to Penn State. He's not going to play this year. We're going to have Drew Aller ranked much higher in our campus to Canton rankings. In CFF, college fantasy football, a player like Drew Aller, Jayden Blue has virtually no value. Is that fair, Nate?
Yeah. I play in. I actually tend to love Dynasty CFF. So,
Okay.
or keeper leagues. So for me, I do pay a lot of attention to those incoming freshmen, even if you're talking about Aller and Blue, who are going to be sitting for a year potentially.
Taven
I
Jackson.
still. Yeah, don't get me started. No, those guys do still carry some weight, but yeah, from a redraft perspective, yeah, the C2C mingling with CFF is always interesting because the drafts just look so different.
Yeah, They do. And when I love looking at the CFF drafts as we welcome in Mike Valerie into the show after. But no, I love looking at the CFF drafts because first of all, I like seeing names that I don't recognize. There are fewer names this year when I'm looking at, yourself, Mike Bainbridge post their best ball drafts. I'm like, okay, I actually know some of these players. But, man, the education, it just really, really helps getting to know those names, as we get into those rounds that Austin says that aren't, valuable for C2C purposes and supplemental drafts. But you can find some of those guys who are going to produce for you college points. So,
dude, I didn't even notice it during the Twitter feed, but your robe, or is that a robe, or are you wearing a towel? Did you just get out of the pool? Did you I didn't even notice it.
I would turn on. I have a space heater under here, but I would pick it up on the mic, so I got this robe.
Wow, what a trooper!
Notice it.
Oh, thank you, Felix.
For your sacrifice, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your sacrifice. Yeah, for sure. That a hard-earned sacrifice. But so what I actually wanted to say is, CFF drafters are so much. I don't say better. Actually, I will say better because it's true. They're way better at drafting like college producing players than C2C players are. Like there's a huge discrepancy between who C2C thinks is going to be productive from a college lens and who CFF is going to be productive from a college lens. Like there's a huge gap between these two. And if only there was some sort of slider that could like solve it long term for, for ADP, I'd love to see that sort of thing. But for now, I mean, you just got to compare ADP among the two. And I think that CFF has done a really good service for C2C players who are looking for production. Cause like there are players that we don't have, like aren't even on our radar that I think are being drafted in CFF that like you can find in like round 35, round 40 of C2C leagues. Like I was talking with Jarek this morning and Jarek was like, I was talking about Stephon Cobbs and like Stephon Cobbs is not a sleeper when you talk about C2C, like CFF leagues. Like everyone in CFF.
They know everything. They know everything. Yeah. I remember last year.
So much value.
Yeah, Kyle Francis was telling me about Nathaniel Dell. I'm like,
they don't know about Kobe Hudson though.
Yeah, Mike, the thought leader, is the biggest Kobe Hudson fan. But seriously, CFF is so integral to your C2C leagues that like you need to be paying attention to what our guy is saying. Like Nate's a huge part of that. Nate knows more, I think, than I could like possibly learn in my lifetime. Like Nate knows everything.
Well, my wife would tell you that's the saddest thing she's ever heard because she sees how much time I'm wasting on Twitter and Phil Still magazines and doing all the ridiculous research that I do. But yeah, it's a lot of information and it's a lot to digest. So sometimes it's it's good to put something together and hopefully try to simplify some things. You'd mentioned like how CFF guys that that people like me, that's primarily or solely what they do, can be so much better at times at drafting college production. I think that we've just had more time and have spent more time focusing on coaching trends and systems. From an NFL perspective, you're looking at that talent more than anything else. And for us, it's literally just spending a lot of time focusing on what those coaching trends are, from the offensive coordinator to even sometimes the QB coach, and just knowing kind of where those guys are floating. And right now it's crazy because they're just transitioning from job to job so quickly, as fast as players are in the portal, really.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't want to put you on the spot, so feel free to give any sort of answer you want here. But who is your favorite sleeper currently in CFF? You want one name and one name only.
Oh, geez. I'm trying to think maybe who I've been targeting pretty hard in the I've gone through 2 rounds now, or we're almost done with the second best ball. draft. I don't know. Let me think about it for a minute, and we'll come back to it.
All right, I'm expecting an answer. Now we got Mike on, who brought the mustache game to match Felix.
Did you comb that?
I
Did
shaved
you
it.
comb that? It looks.
No, I
combed.
shaved it. No, I don't comb. No, it's just natural like this. I shaved it mid show. Once I saw Felix had his shaved, I was like, I gotta be like that guy.
I was gonna say you did not show up with a mustache last week, did you?
No,
No,
I didn't. I cut this off
He
last
did.
night.
He had a beard. He had a full
Had a
beard.
full
because
beard.
I gave
Yeah,
him.
he did.
So if
I
you
gave him
were-
shit two nights ago. Last night.
Yeah.
2 nights ago?
Yeah, it's a week ago.
No,
About a
2
week
nights
ago.
ago we had that.
Oh.
We had a meeting.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. If we are
Okay.
listening to the after show, like back-to-back weeks, last week you heard Mike on as well, and he was saying that he had his exam coming up. And what are the results? Tell the people, Mike.
I passed. So I'm now a nationally licensed loan originator. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes,
Okay.
and that is only possible through working with the
Stamp.com.
C2C crew.
Yeah.
I think I
Yes,
think
yes. I got way more intelligent. Listen to everybody here. The test has like a 35% pass rate, so
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it without the team
The only
behind me.
difference is he wasn't listening to Austin the majority of the time. So
Or
it was-
Matt in this
I
side chat.
would give you a round of applause, but I tried to make that a thing on this show, and nobody ever joins in. So
Let's set the scene.
Let's set the scene.
it's
I
an
do
audio
want-
medium. So yes, you have to tell people what you're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also want you guys
Anyway.
to know that I finished my rankings, by the way, like I promised the other day. I also want you to know that I'm- Devy. I don't care about anything else besides Devy. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's what we pay you for.
Yeah. I stopped at like tight end
All right,
10.
we
The rest
can-
are
we can
irrelevant.
check out
Don't even care.
Nate,
Mike has
I'm
also
a little-
been doing.
Mike can help you with mine. I need help with mine. That's just gonna be
Yeah.
Austin
I'll
says
just
it's
I'll
gonna
just
take
copy and
minutes.
paste.
When he
I was
says he
got-
needs help, he means like literally like he needs you to help him with the computer because he can't work it.
I was like taking peeks at the website's rankings, and like Alfred's just pure chaos. Like I'll be looking at some of them, and it'll be like 30 across the board. And I look at Alfred's, and it's like 115, and I'm like,
You
wow.
want to hear something hilarious about this? And this is not giving too much of a peek behind the curtain. So we have our freshman rankings on the site. Like we've got the guide. And we've got our
Yeah. I was
freshman
peeping
rankings.
those.
Alfred's one of the rankers. Big wide receiver guy went through and did like an analysis of like whose rankings are most similar to everybody else's, if there's any sort of like correlation between any of them. And Alfred literally like there were a couple groupings that were close, and Alfred like was like not even fucking close to anybody's ever.
Yes.
Like what was his R score? It was like 0.009 or something stupid. Like he's like at God bless him, like he is ranking, like he is not being swayed by anybody, and that's a good thing. But like he was not even close to anybody else. We were like, oh, okay, very independent.
Yeah.
I don't
it's-
look at anybody else's rankings either. Well, I guess I might pay attention to 24/7 as I'm going through. But I don't
I'm
know
the
how
thought
you can
leader.
have Drew Aller like quarterback 90 or player 98.
I'm
So,
the thought leader
can-
out here. So
Can I just give like an example though, one just so I can like set the scene for people listening? Kaytron Allen, right? You got Austin has Kaytron Allen at 22, Collins got him at 26, Felix has him at 30, Matt has him at 19, and you go over to Alfred 108.
Love it. Love it. Alfred is putting himself out on the limb.
Yeah.
you know what though?
funny
Like,
'cause-
he did well last year in his stuff. Like he wrote that 3-star article, and like 4 of them hit. Like
His 3-star stuff last season, he did a bunch of content with that, was like really excellent. They were late risers, and they were players who.
Well, who was it? It was Gabe Irvin, Devin Neal. Devin Neal was a 3-star last year.
Yeah.
That's crazy. The dude from Boston College, Coleman.
Who we still have ranked above Pat Garwo, by the way. Pat Garwo is by far the lead back. So we gotta. I say we.
Nate,
And
can I?
also rank
you go
him.
do your CFF rankings, and we'll rank. You know, how you gotta rank.
I do have a question about a player. Speaking of a player that we do not have ranked, One Zach Gibson going from Akron to Georgia Tech.
He's going to start at Tech. I'm convinced he's going to beat out Jeff Sims for the job.
He's going to be the sprinkle on top of the turd. Congratulations.
Y'all are crazy.
He's going to be
that is not happening. That is not happening. Sims is one of those guys that is just like, he's one of those guys that can go nuclear and carry you for a week and then will be the worst ever for 2 to 3 more weeks. So he just cannot be somebody that you want to put too much draft capital in, because he can be a mess throughout the course of a season. But man, in like a best ball league or something like that, he can go crazy. But I do not see Zach Gibson taking his job. I just don't. I like their
offer. Transfer there then. Like there are so many other places he could have gone.
See, that's funny because I really think
if Zach Gibson was the quarterback at Western Kentucky, how would you feel about him? You'd be like, we got to go get some Zach Gibson.
I don't know. Is he better than Darius Oceans?
I haven't watched Oceans.
I just want to be able to call my teams Oceans 11. So don't you guys take this from me. Okay?
I think Zach Gibson is good. Like I think he's like a legitimately good player. I think he's way better than Jeff Sims, who almost lost his job at times last year.
What if they did this? What if Jeff Sims just transferred over to Akron and runs the Joe Moorhead offense, since he needs a running quarterback? I mean, that seems like the right fit. They should have just made a trade.
I agree. So who's starting at Akron this year? I actually researched this like a couple days ago.
I spent a couple minutes too.
I think it's DeMarcus Irons.
Yeah.
I think it's DeMarcus Irons. I have Zach Larrier listed second on the depth chart. I actually forgot Cam Wiley transferred in there. That's kind of an interesting transfer.
Collins all over Cam Wiley there. That's like.
I think Jonzel Norris is going to be the RB1. So
yeah,
suck on that, Colin. That's
Norris,
2 weeks in a row we get this.
Yeah, Colin.
This Norris is a really nice sleeper.
Yeah, I like Jonzel Norris. I actually, because that offensive line was actually like pretty good last year. It was a top 50 unit in terms of line, or top, what were they ranked? 42nd in terms of line yards. Like that's not a bad team, and they returned 4 starters, and then they brought in Max Baines in the portal, and he's going to start at tackle. Like he's a good player. So I actually kind of like Jonzel Norris. Not to get like off on Akron running backs, but
you guys are making up names.
Now we're venturing into like CFF.
You're making up names. You're just making up names.
Norris is
like the real players.
He's a big boy. He's like 6'2", 215, 220, right in that range. He was one of those guys had my eye, because the spring reports came out last year as a true freshman. Like, well, it turns out this guy we knew nothing about might be our best running back, and then at the end of the season he showed out really well. So
yeah, he was really impressive. I think he's gonna operate as a clear RB1 in front of Wiley. I don't think Wiley's all that great. So I like Norris a lot, but I think that offense might be better than people think it might be. I don't know. I kind of like Billy Fessler. Like I'm kind of interested in what he's doing.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Just for the group here, right? I feel like Mizzou brought in a lot of high level talent this year for freshmen, but no one's talking about their quarterbacks at all. Like, is it still Bazelak, and do we believe in Bazelak now?
Bazelak transferred out to
Indiana, right?
Oh, so who's it now?
Yeah.
Cook.
I think it's Brady Cook. I think Brady Cook is going to start week 1. Like, I think Brady Cook's the guy week 1, and I think Sam Horn can maybe come on later. But I think it's Brady Cook, and I like Brady Cook looked good against Army. I don't know why everybody's discounting him. Like he looked pretty good.
Why are we counting on Tyler Macon so fast?
Because he's small. Have you seen his size?
You're small.
No, I am towering over Macon.
There was a number of those reports with Jayden Daniels listed Missouri as an option. I don't think they had any basis behind it, but that was one that I think everybody just thinks that they're in that group of programs that are on the lookout for a QB, but I haven't seen them really seeking anybody out. I mean, they haven't gotten visits from guys like Cameron Ward or any of those guys, you know.
Well,
how long do you see Cameron Ward?
I really think Brady Cook is I think Brady Cook could start like week 1. Like I thought he looked really good against Army.
Is Dominic Lovett at TCU or is he at Missouri?
I didn't hear that he transferred, but
which school is he?
Missouri.
So he is up because he's from East St. Louis also.
Yeah, he played. He was Tyler Macon's like main wide receiver in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, they played together. I mean,
So
Macon
that's
got
the
the
Missouri
get the
quarterback.
start against Georgia. And granted,
I actually thought Macon
Georgia
looked good.
broke more than one quarterback this year. So there's,
I actually thought Macon looked good in that game. Like, maybe not in the first half, but in the second half, like I thought he actually looked impressive.
Exactly. What the fuck did you want this kid? First collegiate start, we're just going to toss you out against Georgia, who had just destroyed DJU's entire, like, DJU's been groomed since the age of 6, and they just killed him.
Yeah. I don't understand why we're so excited about these Clemson players, too, because it's like DJU is not going to
DJU's not going to be the starter there halfway through the year, so.
Because we like Kate Klubnik. I'm actually not. I don't like any Clemson player outside of Bo Collins, to be honest. Like
you don't like the incoming freshman?
I'm interested to hear what Nate says about
I
this.
mean,
like, I don't like Dabo is not afraid to just yank somebody. Like, that's my big thing.
No, he's not. Well, Dabo, I hate Dabo. Like, I'll go on record saying, like, I think Dabo is one of my least favorite people in college football. I just think he's like a scumbag that presents himself as like a nice dude. I don't think that's true. Anyway, I think there's a good chance that if DJU struggles, we see Klubnik by like week 4 or 5. I really think that's in the cards. And then if you see Klubnik, I think you're going to see Bo Collins, Prosper. I think I'm trying to figure out who I like as the other options outside of Nagata. And we brought him up earlier. We brought what's his name in the slot up earlier? I don't remember. But I think Brandon Spencer is the guy who's the slot wide receiver this year. And like he's not a long-term guy or a CFF asset, but like I think he's the guy who's gonna be in the slot. And block his role is basically gonna be blocking out people.
Does Williams does he line up on the boundary, or is he potentially an inside guy?
I think he could do either, but I think
he's played
based on what they like to run there, like I don't know that he gets a boundary job, but I think he could do very well in the slot there.
Do you think he can beat out Brandon Spencer? Because like I think
I don't
Spencer
know anything
is the
about
guy
this
who
kid.
operates.
So yes, I think he can.
He's like Drake Stoops at Oklahoma. Like he's just a guy who just sits in the slot and beats out talented players because is who he is. That's all.
Are you guys talking about? Okay, sorry. Are you guys talking about EJ Williams earlier or no? Sorry.
Didn't really talk about him because he's just very average. Like that's what I'm talking about with Adam Randall though. Like EJ Williams, Joe Ngata, Dakari Collins, Bo Collins. Like these are literally all the same exact player. Like there is nothing that would make any of those guys stand out from each other for me, except for Bo Collins. Like did well down the stretch. That makes me probably the wide receiver 1 there. But like outside of that, like good luck separating some of these guys. I don't know. I mean, Nate, what do you expect for CFF next year?
It's not a system I'm really investing a whole lot into right now. I'm moderately interested in finding out what the changes are going to be with offense with Elliott moving on to Virginia. That's other than that, I mean, it's just kind of a crapshoot on how they're going to turn out right now.
Has Brandon Schneider ever called plays? The new coordinator, right? Like he came up through Clemson, but like I don't ever remember him calling plays anywhere.
No, he is not.
I didn't think so.
And they always hire from pretty outside of Brent Venables. I mean, you just pretty much can mark it down as soon as the guy moves on, they just hire the next guy. It was pretty funny. You were you saying how you don't like Dabo, and me and a lot of my OU buddies, we do not like Dabo either. And it's funny because it seems like we always joke that it's a cult in Clemson. It's, once you're there, you don't leave and you never say anything about the program and all that. And we feel like there's a lot of cultish type things that are starting to happen in Oklahoma with all the coaches that have come over. So it's been kind of weird having to adjust to the cult lifestyle. But I guess we're part of it, so we'll drink the Kool-Aid now. Yeah,
Venables kind of brings that over with him. Well, Felix, I can't see a $2 bill with a tiger paw on it.
Let me set the scene.
Let me set the scene.
Nate, I got a question for you.
That cult personality, that's from Clemson. That's something their fans hand out when they go places. So we went to the Louisville
really?
Clemson game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
$2 bills with
They got
Paul's on.
nothing else to do in Clemson, South Carolina, which is a one road in, one road out town.
Damn. One of the late round guys that I like this year for a dart, though, I just want to know your opinion about it, is Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, transferred to USC. I don't know. He's just fast and he's big. They just lost Drake London, so I think the spot's open. Like, that's my only thought process behind it.
Yeah,
that's it.
So I wrote about the USC situation in one of my the Stock Down article whenever I was talking about Gary Bryant. The problem I have is that number one, the room is too full, and it's too full with a lot of guys that do a lot of similar things. He can be a boundary guy, which is what they need more than anything. They got a whole lot of kind of guys that can play on the inside. What's weird is that Mario Williams, even though he's diminutive, he also plays on the outside. He didn't play a ton in the slot. Brian actually moved out a little bit more and played some of the outside whenever Drake London went down. So his role kind of switched a little bit towards the end of the year. But I'm just kind of staying away from all those guys. I mean, there's just so many, and there's so many guys that have a decent pedigree, but just haven't really proven all that much on the field. And systematically, Lincoln over the last couple of years has gone to a totally different system in that he just kind of targets a lot of these hybrid type guys that come out of the backfield and do a lot of underneath stuff. And I think Mario Williams got kind of caught up and being one of those guys, or Lincoln tried to make him one of those guys, and just not a lot of downfield action. So I don't know. I mean, I think he's got the talent, but I don't know. I'm kind of staying away from a lot of those USC wide receiver room.
Got you. All right, next question. Next question. Don't worry about it, guys. I got it. Don't worry about it. Okay.
All right, here we go. Real after show starts right now.
I want to hear his question. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. The next question is, I think I saw that the CSF guys had the Syracuse quarterback ranked super high. I think I saw it in your article too, actually. No one's talking about the pass catchers over there, so I just want to hear your thoughts on the wide receiver room at Rutgers, or Syracuse, at Syracuse, and who we should be targeting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that Taj Harris didn't just go back to Syracuse. Like, I feel like that would have been a great setup for him there. I don't know. It was such a two-man game last year between Schrader and Tucker. Yeah, Tucker. So, yeah, it's a totally unproven wide receiver room. I know Queeley's got he's got the size and the ability to pull it off, but who was the guy that kind of came on? Moxley could probably remind me of this. The guy that kind of came on towards the end of the year last year. Was it Courtney Jackson that kind of showed up a little bit? Is that his name?
You caught me in a bad spot.
You're good. It's just, man, there's so many question marks with their wide receivers. Yeah. It's just kind of hard to tell at this point. But Courtney Jackson played pretty well down the stretch, and they got another guy named Queeley who's Queenly, something like that. It's supposed to be like that.
The problem with Schrader, who Jared and I were both on last year. Jared called him on the C2C pod like really early in the offseason. Mm-hmm. And I was on him like a lot later. So like Jared was the first person I ever heard talk about him. But like he's a bad passer. Like he's not like a passable passer. Like he's a really terrible passer. So like I don't think there's a receiver that he can support realistically for fantasy purposes. If like I'm being honest, like I just don't see that happening. And I actually like Robert Ane, who's their new offense coordinator, who's coming over from Virginia. Like I actually think he's a really talented offense coordinator. Virginia hated him for some stupid reason, but he's a good OC. I'm actually worried Schrader might lose that job. Like, if I'm being totally honest, I think there's a chance Schrader loses it. Because, like, he's such a bad passer. Like, he really is.
But did you see Brennan? Did you see Brennan Armstrong throw the ball before?
That's true. Well,
he was an objectively horrible passer whenever the year he was backing up Perkins.
Yeah.
So this is a good example of a coaching staff situation. It's not just Robert Ani that's coming over, but he's bringing the quarterback coach with him from Virginia that made Perkins and what's his face from last year, Armstrong, that made Armstrong just so much better passers. I mean, I'm not saying I get it. He's been terrible in the past. Schrader has, but I mean, I think he's got a chance.
Armstrong flashed in 2019, like kind of good passing skills. 2020 was terrible for him. Like he was so bad in 2020. So I just don't know if we're gonna see. Like, Schrader's never been good. I just question like whether or not Schrader can be I actually don't question him from a CFF upside perspective because like his rushing is just so amazing. I just don't know if there's nobody else. Like, I don't think DeVito transferred out, right? Like Tommy DeVito isn't there anymore.
No, he's gone.
Yeah, so nobody's replacing
Illinois.
him.
Yeah, he went to Illinois.
Yeah, he did. So I don't think anybody's replacing him, like realistically, but they're gonna get some 0 weeks from him when teams can contain him in the pocket. To be honest, I like Garrett Schrader, like a funky looking dude with like a scraggly beard. I mean, like I'm here for it. Like that's the kind of guy that I want to support.
What
I
happened to the
question
1950s quarterback that was clean cut, had a nice haircut, was respectable, I don't know what happened to these guys.
I want my quarterbacks to look like Garrett Schrader with a scraggly beard, long hair that hasn't been washed in like 7 or 8 days.
No wonder you like Quinn Ewers so much.
Well, I want mine to look like Gardner Minshew and then Justin Herbert before the haircut.
Is that what your mustache is inspired by?
Wasn't it Garrett Schrader that got the black eye from Willie Gay? Wasn't it Willie Gay that smacked Garrett Schrader in the face? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, Garrett Schrader is quite a character. I am really interested to see how that offense operates, and I don't remember if you're higher or lower on Sean Tucker, Nate. I don't remember where you put him, but I actually think that Tucker could be just as good as he was last season. Like last season was a really high ceiling, but like I'm not really ready to knock him down just because I think the offense could be more efficient. Yes, Mike, holding your hand up.
Yep, another question for Nate here, the most important guy in the show. Dontavion Wicks, I just messed that up. Dontavion Wicks of Virginia. I think I saw he was super low in the rankings as well. What's your problem?
So I feel like don't confuse my stock down report with guys that I'm saying I'm low in the rankings. I think that those are dudes that could have been crazy high had their situations been slightly different. Like Anthony Richardson playing in a Dan Mullen system. Dontavion Wicks getting to play again in this system there at Virginia with Robert Ani. But, man, those guys leave. And we just talked about how crappy the Clemson wide receiver room was last year and how broke DJU was. Well, that offensive coordinator is coming over, and that's who they're going to be working with now at Virginia. So if he excited you for Clemson last year, that's what you're going to be working with.
Okay, well, I think I saw like Lavelle, the 6'5" guy that was hurt last year. I can't remember his name fully.
6'7". Lavelle Davis.
Yeah, that guy. I think he was like ranked like 20. I saw like Wicks at like 120, and I was like, "What's going on?"
You do know that our those ranking sheets are not up to date yet, right?
But at some point in time, someone put those names in that order. That's my issue. At some point in time, someone was like, "This is where it's going to go."
You don't think maybe they could be alphabetical?
It's not.
I'm just saying Wicks comes way after Davis. So just throw that out there.
Clearly, I've been looking at the rankings way more than anybody else here, so they're not alphabetical.
I got a question, Austin. So far from what you've seen in the short time that I've been on the Slack there with C2C, me or let's see, do you think that it's me or Felix that is the worst when it comes to a technology standpoint?
I think we're going to need to see a bigger sample size.
This would be a great question for Colin too, because he's
Yeah,
the one
Colin
that's
is
getting
the fixer.
he's the one that's getting all my DMs like Saturday night at midnight whenever I'm like, I don't know, 3 beers deep, thinking that it's a great time to mess around on the website. And
when he's not busy rewatching Les Mis.
Not
Nate,
Colin
after he's
doesn't
had
watch
like
Les Mis, so.
3 double IPAs, is like,
oh,
yo.
dude, it was I don't know, it was maybe like a week or so after I started messing around on the WordPress, and I had just finished off just polished off like a 15% stout. I mean, I was feeling pretty good, and here I bet Colin probably had like 8 messages from me between the hours of like 11:45 and 1 a.m. and he's probably like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" I apologize to him the next morning.
We got a double IPA tonight.
There you go.
So I was drinking
So
too.
we're,
Why are you punishing yourself? Just get a seltzer. It's
I
okay.
actually enjoy drinking quality alcohol.
Wow.
Seltzies
So
is doo-doo.
no, I
Wow.
don't want a seltzer. Can I?
Wait.
Am I going to get in trouble?
I have a question
I
for
have a
Felix
question.
now.
Yes.
Well,
Okay, go, Mike.
Okay. Felix, are we team IPA or team seltzer over there?
Felix
I'm
is
not
team
a
red
beer.
wine.
I'm not a beer. I'm not a beer
Felix
drinker.
likes bourbon.
Felix's
whiskey.
team order red wine at a brewery.
That's okay. Oh, that's not
I will
okay.
say-
Sorry, that's not okay.
I am all for Mike driving the after show.
I am too.
So-
We gotta have Mike in here every week.
If Felix is a bourbon guy, I want to know if you're planning on going to the Kentucky Derby, and if so, I'm going to see you there.
Wait, are you going to the Derby?
Yeah,
Well, I'll be. When are you coming in? Are you coming in for Oaks Day?
I'll be in there. I'll be there for I've been to Oaks one time, and that was like, I don't know if you've ever been. Sorry, I have too many thoughts in my
I've
head.
been to Oaks. I have not been to Derby.
My first time going to Oaks was my first time going over to Churchill Downs, and I went to the infield where there's no seating, and I'm like, I'm gonna wear my nice dress shoes that have no comfort in them whatsoever. That day sucked. That was the worst day. That was absolutely terrible.
My parents have been to Churchill Downs in the infield, and they said it's the worst experience ever.
It's the worst
They
experience.
said, do not do that.
If it rains, you're screwed. You're absolutely
If
screwed if it rains.
It's perfect for people who are under the age of 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just missed the
That's who
cutoff.
it's geared
Shit.
for.
I've been to Churchill. I mean, there's a restaurant in Churchill, Matt Wynn Steakhouse, that I really like.
You guys call me the bougie one.
Also,
This
my
guy.
first time at Churchill Downs, I met my college girlfriend's ex, who I was actually a little intimidated by because the dude was just gorgeous. And I met the dude. He's like 5'4" flat, and I was like, "Let's go." I was pretty excited about that.
There's probably no
on the after show,
reservations,
God.
but reserve. You might have to ask Austin for some scratch on this one, but reserve a table at Matt Wynn Steakhouse.
Okay.
And have the charcuterie board. If they have the duck there, it's really that day.
Okay.
So,
I love a good charcuterie board. I was actually having one earlier while I was doing my rankings too, just so you guys know. I was. Yeah.
Solo
cheap-
charcuterie board.
I almost had a photo of myself. I really did. I had my shoulders up, my feet up.
I'm just
I was gonna have
picturing
Kobe
Mike
Hudson in the
sitting.
background.
I'm just picturing Mike sitting there with an open bag of pepperoni and a Velveeta block, and he's just sitting there ranking.
Look at my charcuterie.
It was pepperoni too. It was pepperoni. That's one of the two meats I had out.
Mike picked off the pepperoni from Domino's Pizza the night before and decided to call that.
what's the best thing on a charcuterie board?
Truffle cheese.
I was about to say brie.
Truffle cheese hits the shit every time.
That's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, so I'll be in Kentucky for about a week. We have 2 weddings to go to because half my college friends still live in the area. I got married at EKU, by the way.
Wait, you're not in Lexington, but you are a UK fan. If I remember.
I went to UK and a lot of our friends are there, so we travel there frequently. I live in Virginia now. Yeah.
Okay.
Northern Virginia.
I keep thinking that you live in Lexington, and I don't know why. Because I asked you this, I think last week too.
Yeah.
And you gave me the same answer.
It's okay. I'm not that important, so it's fine.
You were in Lexington as a student. You ready?
Yes.
Let me know when you come, Mike, and we'll get a drink or something like that. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
doing a derby if you got extra time.
That's okay. You'll pay since you're the lawyer, so it's
Yeah, I'll pay.
You heard it here first, everyone. All right.
I used to be able to pay for that stuff and put it on the firm's tab, but I don't work for the firm anymore. So
That's why I showed up buzzed and still in my work clothes.
Mike, are
were you being treated, Austin? Were you being?
Oh, yeah.
Were you a client? You were a client and running up the bill. Man,
So
we can't. We can't do that at my new.
Every Wednesday during busy season, they just take like all the staff out and just get us like wasted.
Yeah,
because
Nice.
we're in the trenches, you know.
Love to see it.
They call that mental health in the Army.
Yeah. So, Mike, I was gonna ask. So you were what? Well, I don't want to